All right, good morning. How's everybody doing today? It's Monday and new week and everything going on. Sorry about Friday. I started working. I could tell my computer. I had an old Mac. The color wheel of death was kind of whirling around. I thought, well, maybe it'll make it one more day, but no, it didn't. So anyway, on a new one now, and so everything should be better. Hope you had a great weekend. Ours was busy. Good times, but dinner Friday night and then dinner Saturday night with some friends that were going to be celebrating their marriage and performing the wedding ceremony in a couple of weeks, and so busy doing that. We're moving our church, the location building, so to speak. So we're kind of having to dismantle everything out of the building. A lot of work. So Saturday we move in the church, and you can pray about that with us if you want to. We're unsure where we're going at this moment during COVID. You know, our numbers aren't what they normally are. So we're actually going to do some house church for a few weeks just to breathe and see what's going on. So I'm really excited about the house church concept. So we got a lot of ideas. My mind never shuts down. So we may be doing Thursday church and Sunday church, and just to accommodate people, and we'll see what the Lord does. But we're excited about it. So yesterday after church, we had everybody over from the church dinner. It was a good time. I love our church. I love everything about what's going on there. And so anyway, if you're in the area, come drop by and see us sometime. So we'd love to see you. So we're in the book of James, chapter 3, and he's still kind of in the context, not kind of, he's still talking about teachers. You remember that he was contrasting teachers and let not many of you become teachers and all of that. So now he's drifting into the topic of wisdom. And so while it seems like it's disjointed, it's not. He's on, if I could use this term, he's on a tirade. He's on a mission right now, James is, because the church is being infiltrated by a group of people who have not wholesome motives. They're trying to subvert the church. They're trying to act like there's this super saint thing going on. And so James is coming against that. And so when he speaks now, he's beginning to move into the section. It's a powerful section on wisdom. And that's where we're looking. What is true wisdom and what is not? And he leaves no room for doubt. If you're not a Christ follower, you have no concept of true wisdom. You may have a lot of knowledge, but you don't have wisdom. And so this is what he's talking about. This is where we're going. And so let's read the text, and then we'll kind of break it down and get glean some truth from it. He says in James chapter 3, verse 13, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by their good deeds, done in humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, don't boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere, peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness." And so that's the context. I mean, that's the verses that we're looking at today. And so he's talking about true wisdom. Now, there's a great word I love to use. It's called sagacity, because it's someone who is sagacious, who that word helps us understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is being able to take things apart, understand how it works. I have knowledge of these things. Wisdom has the ability to put things together. It's a little different. So knowledge is a lot of factual base. Wisdom deals with how to take those facts and apply them to life. And so this is where he's going. Now, Solomon says this: the fear of the Lord is the beginning, or the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So, I want to be very clear. If you're not a Christ follower today, there's a measure of wisdom that you can have, but you can't understand how all things are put together. You can't understand how to take simple truths and make life make sense of it, because there's a bent toward you who are not Christ followers, and that is towards selfishness, because that's who we are before Christ. And so he's drawing a pretty distinct contrast here, and so that's where we're going. He's in the context of teaching, and he's saying, listen, when you teach, you may think you're giving wisdom, but he says, let me explain to you what wisdom looks like. And so for those of us who are any kind of teaching realm, which would include parenting, or really marriage, relationships, any of those things, there's this ability where we try to communicate and teach and educate, and we kind of build each other up, right? So he's saying, hey, in this context, whether it's that or in the formal context of teaching, you need to be careful and understand what true wisdom is. Now, true wisdom is seen in good conduct and good attitude. That's where it comes from. Now, we use this kind of a horseshoe model all the time, that if we want to change behavior, we have to change our thought process. So if we think right, whatever we think, our attitude reflects, right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So what we believe to be true affects our attitude, how we see life. That's what we call the windshield of life. And then those attitudes will always demonstrate themselves in behavior when circumstances come our way. And so what James is saying here is, who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. So he tells me two things are important there: a good attitude, or good character, and a humble attitude. So behavior and attitude, crucial things. That's how we know someone is wise, because their behavior makes sense, and because their attitude isn't arrogant. Arrogant people don't have wisdom. It's a no-brainer. We're going to see that here in all its glory. But so this is what he's talking about. Then he moves into this. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, don't brag about that stuff or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come from heaven. So now he's going to break down what is earthly wisdom? What is stupid wisdom, I like to call it. What does stupid wisdom look like? Well, it's bitter jealousy. If your wisdom, if your education of people, if you're dispensing your knowledge, so to speak, in a packaged form, and if you're earthly wisdom, you're doing it out of jealousy, bitter jealousy. That's rivalry, is all that is. You want to be over on somebody. You don't like the fact that somebody's perceived better than you. Envy is wanting what someone else has. Jealousy is wanting to just dominate over someone. So I'm jealous, right? I want to own it. I want it. It's mine. It's a selfish thing. And so he says, if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart. So there's this bitter envy. That's a great term that's used. That's in, I think, the NIV, the New American Standard. The NIV says jealousy. But bitter envy is really what it is. There's an anger about you that you feel like life owes you something. If you can't have healthy wisdom if your vantage point of how you see things go together revolves around you. Does this make sense? And so he says it's earthly wisdom. Wisdom, when it's knowledge and taken and put together, it works for everyone, not just for you, because it's not about you. It's just eternal truth. The world will always come at us with wisdom, and it will be out of bitter jealousy or bitter envy, so to speak. And then a humble attitude. He says, for selfish ambition in your hearts, that selfish ambition in your hearts is a selfish attitude. There's no humility there. So it's a selfish ambition. The reason your motive for educating someone is for your benefit. Man, it sounds like whatever news channel you want to turn on these days, really, or whoever you want to listen to. Just in your social feed, you see this. It's an abundance. And he says here, it is when this happens, when there's bitter envy and selfish ambition, when you can see that when someone's talking, it does not come, and they don't. He says, don't boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom comes down from heaven, is earthly. In other words, there's no God perspective to it. It's unspiritual. There's nothing that's going to feed the soul. It may feed head knowledge. It may feed evil, but it won't feed the soul. And in fact, he goes straight forward and says it's just demonic. So there is a wisdom this pure evil. And a lot of people will gravitate to it and go, oh, wow, isn't that amazing truth? But it's demonic and it's unspiritual and it's earthly. And he says this, bottom line, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, he says the result of that is chaos and evil practice. This is why most of what you hear today coming just from the world is sheer stupidity, whether it's whatever topic it is, whether it's social injustice, whether it's abortion, whether it's any topic that is pertinent to you and me as Christ followers. It's filled with that. Worldly wisdom, there's this jealousy, wanting power. They want to dominate first, and they're going to create strife to make that happen. It's a party spirit. That's what that term jealous or envy, jealous envy is about. It's a party spirit. We're making people make choices, choose me or choose them. And the selfish ambition, it's all about you. And the result of that, chaos, just utter rampant chaos. We should know that because it is the devil who who's the author of confusion. It's evil. So where you see confusion, which we are abounding in confusion today about all sorts of things, you realize that that's not wisdom. That's whoever's arguing for that and creating that confusion, it's not from heaven. Then he comes down, he says this, but the wisdom that comes from heaven, I love all of everything he says here. It's pure. That is, it's untainted by sin. It's not mixed with motive and trying to dominate over. It's just good, genuine truth. It doesn't show favoritism. Truth never does. It's just truth, and it's powerful. It's pure. There's no selfish motive. Then he says it's peace loving. It's not characterized, but again, by that win-loss. What was happening in the culture here is these teachers were coming into the church and they were trying to say, hey, what James and what others have been teaching you, they don't got it all together. Here's what really is. You need to choose what we say over what they say. And he says, heavenly wisdom, it knows no such thing like that. It doesn't matter whose voice it comes from. That's why Paul got so upset with the Corinthian church, because they were saying, well, I'm of Apollos or I'm of Paul. And Paul was saying, man, I'm glad I didn't baptize any of you people. And then he remembers a couple that he baptized. Because he's like, it's just, you're creating these cliques. Well, I was baptized by Paul. I was baptized by Apollos. I was this and that. Heavenly wisdom doesn't create that divide. It's peaceable. It's peace-loving. It's not deliberately causing fights. It's considerate. That is, the better word there of considerate is it's gentle. It considers others. It's not harsh. Real wisdom isn't harsh. It's meant to motivate. It's meant to propel. And so it's considerate. It takes into consideration all types of people, so that wherever you find yourself, you can get from point A to point B where wisdom is. And so there's a gentleness about it. There's not, well, you're just stupid and you can't make it. It's this concept that, hey, this is for everybody. This true wisdom lifts everybody. And it's powerful when you start thinking about this in terms of the scriptures. And he says it's submissive. That is that it submits to God. It's not my truth. I'm not giving you my wisdom. I'm giving you his wisdom, right? My wisdom is kind of worthless, but his wisdom is everything. And so when we fear the Lord, that wisdom comes in, because when we fear the Lord, we honor his word. And as we honor his word, our life is transformed. And the result of that, the behavior and the attitude of that is Christ-like. It's also full of mercy. So it's not brutal. Right? I mean, real wisdom isn't brutal. It's just full of mercy. It's like, oh, I get it. It's like you're lost in the woods and all of a sudden you see an opening, or you see somebody, it's dark and you don't know where you're going. All of a sudden you see a lamp. It's full of mercy. It's like, oh, somebody's showing me the way. That's what this is. It's not brutal. It's full of mercy. It's good fruit. Real wisdom will always produce goodness. It'll produce right living, always, every time. If your wisdom only leads to chaos, or the wisdom that someone gave you is truth shaded and it's going to harm others, and there's some illegality about it. It's in a gray area. That's not wisdom. Real wisdom, it always bears good fruit. It's impartial. And again, it goes back to it's good for everybody. It doesn't waver. It's not like, okay, well, this circumstance, that wisdom won't work. Wisdom, if it's true heavenly wisdom, works no matter the circumstance. All right. I remember I was in a situation one time where I had a guy that he wouldn't talk to me. He was on the staff of the church, but he just wouldn't. He got to where he was mad, wouldn't communicate. I couldn't figure out what was wrong. So I went and spoke with some of the leaders in the church and said, hey, look, here's what I've done. He's not listening to me. I need you to go with me. And I quoted Matthew 18, which is what you do when a brother is kind of sins against you. Here's what you do. And I'll never forget, one of the elders looked at me and said, trust us, that won't work. And I thought, you tell me the scriptures won't work in a situation like this. So I realized I wasn't dealing with someone who had real heavenly wisdom. They had earthly wisdom, because that wisdom, if it's in the scriptures, it works. It works every time. It's not, well, not this situation, but that situation. And real wisdom always works. It's impartial. It doesn't waver. It's sincere. That means it's sincere is a great word. It's what they use in theater. Or in business, if you had a vase, that's a better deal. And there was a crack in it, but you wanted to sell it, you would put wax on it, and cover it up. And then when you would smear it, it would look good, but when it got into the heat or whatever, that wax would melt. And so, you were selling someone goods that weren't in fact what they were made out to believe they were. So sincere means unmixed, without wax is really what that term means in its original, without wax, meaning that there's no one's tried to patch this thing together. It's just rock solid truth. Man, we need wisdom like this. Our kids need this kind of wisdom. I don't know what kind of wisdom you're giving your kids. I don't know what kind of wisdom you're receiving, but it ought to look like this. And then he goes on, he says, peacemakers. Now he's giving us kind of the bottom line. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Real wisdom is about bringing peace to a situation, not division, chaos, and choices. And it's amazing. So worldly wisdom, what's the result of that? Chaos, evil, and division. What's the result of godly wisdom? Peace and righteousness. What kind of wisdom are you listening to? And what kind of wisdom are you given? That's the question for us today. And I'll leave you with that. I got to scoot, and I'm going to see you tomorrow. We're going to be bouncing into chapter 4 of this book, and I can't wait to share it with you. Love you guys, and hope you have a great day. Be strong and bold out there. Love you.